Have you or someone you know been fired for being autistic? That's illegal. On this video, I'm going to share some practical adjustments and inclusive practices that your employer can implement today. Let's go. Welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I'm Orionkelly, that autistic guy, and I'm all about helping you increase your level of understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of the autistic community. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, I'd be delighted if you subscribe to my YouTube channel and join the most amazing community. Fired for being autistic isn't actually uncommon. Okay, it might not be called that or labeled as that. What usually happens is, I think we've reached the end of our relationship and probably time to go our separate ways. It's really just because you're autistic. Unfortunately, times have changed and we're going to make your position redundant, effective immediately. It's just because you're autistic, really. Our professional relationship has broken down to the point where we don't see this working anymore. So, yeah, we're not going to renew your contract. It's because you're autistic. I cry myself to sleep. Diagnosed or undiagnosed, autistic people and neurodivergent people, for that matter more broadly, absolutely and statistically struggle to not only find, but really perform, maintain, and keep meaningful employment. In one of my past videos called Autistic Traits in Adults You Never Realized Were Signs of Autism, 20 autistic adult traits, I've had plenty of comments say, you know what, number 20 is like a video in itself. And in essence, number 20 is about the idea that, are you one of those people in the workplace that is always labeled maybe not a team player or taken the wrong way, rude or abrupt or bad at communicating in a professional manner? You're labeled in a way that isn't correct, but is as a result of people not understanding how autistic people communicate, interact, and the challenges we face with social communication and interaction. Let's talk about it from a diagnosed, undiagnosed point of view, and then we're going to get to some practical and reasonable adjustments that you can take to your employer or employers watching can implement for their autistic or neurodivergent employees literally today. So if you're diagnosed, well, there's a couple of issues around disclosure. And we've talked about that in a disclosure video. And the bottom line is, it's always going to come down to when it's the right time for you. Disclosure is a personal choice, okay? Just the same as how you identify yourself. So you might not want to disclose until you've physically gained employment. And that makes sense. And then you might want to disclose it then to ask for adjustments. You shouldn't feel bad about this, by the way. Diagnosis means that there is a medically diagnosed, legally recognized disability, and it's against the law. It's discrimination to not provide you with the adjustments or the inclusion practices that help you in your role. It's no different to providing ramps for people that use a wheelchair. If you're undiagnosed, it can be very tricky, or you don't want to disclose, because how can you blame someone for not understanding you if you're not telling them you need to be understood? My experiences pre-diagnosis were that. I mean, a lot of my career was pre-diagnosis in the early days, and working in radio and the entertainment field. Even though everyone knew, no one didn't know I was different. Everyone knew my brain worked differently and I was a different person. But a diagnosis, it wasn't on the radar. So for me and my experiences, I can help you in, sharing them and then helping you if you're about to approach this. My experiences were, you are rude, or you are brutal, or you are too honest or raw or upfront or in your face, or you are not a team player, or you can't play well with others, or you're just too real or too honest. And of course, then that means I'm rude. So apparently honesty isn't the best policy. Have you heard neurotypicals use the phrase honesty is the best policy, but then literally slap you on the wrist if you're ever honest to them and it offends them? So what's the policy, mate? Can we decide on the policy? Make up your mind. You're not actually breaking any laws. You're just a different person acting as yourself as an autistic person. And of course, that makes people uncomfortable, and that has repercussions in the workplace, and that will flow on. So what I've learnt from those experiences is there is value in being open and upfront, but also there's value in taking things with you and not just dumping it on an employer and expecting them to know it all and fix it. Because it is their responsibility, and it's discrimination not to provide you with what you require as a medically diagnosed disability, though it's important to actually go to them with information that they can use. And I've got some for you to take to them right now. All right, so let's discuss some reasonable, practical adjustments, some inclusive practices that you can take to your employer today, or employers can implement in their workplace right now. I want to start with environmental adjustments, because I think these are one of the bigger categories of practical and reasonable adjustments you could ask for from an employer to assist you as an autistic person or a neurodivergent person in the workplace. If sensory issues in an office or your workplace are getting the best of you, I think it's important that you provide that feedback and then you suggest things like allocated office spaces or allocated spaces for your workspace where you can do whatever your role is. Now, when I mean allocated, I mean where practical, a workspace that is not in the hustle and bustle of the office or is not, directly in or near the things that are setting you off. And make that permanent. A lot of employees are constantly working under the fear that this open office plan, this hot desking stuff, could change at any minute. You could be moved offices or workspaces or have a new person next to you at any time. Now that might be okay for some people. For autistic people, this type of change, this type of routine, this type of confrontational experience of not only moving you and your things, but the people around you can be really detrimental, not only to the autistic person, but also to their productivity, which therefore is detrimental to the employer. So we have to look at all the win-wins here. Helping an autistic person helps them mentally and physically, and as a person, it helps their productivity, and that helps the employer. When we are employed, we want to do our job well to the best of our abilities. That's the point. In addition to allocated workspaces that are autism friendly and permanent areas, the ability to control the controllables, the environment around an autistic employee, is really key. If it's possible, you should ask your employer for these types of capacities. So are you able to, this might be as simple as an area where you can physically open or shut curtains. You can physically open or shut windows. You can physically turn the noise off in the roof. You know how some workplaces have radio and music playing in the roof or in the walls or whatever. You can adjust that in your area, or it turned off in your area. Or the lighting is either different lighting. Maybe it's different lighting. Maybe it's dimmable lighting. In essence, the ability to be able to adjust the environment around you as an autistic employee to at least some practical degree is really important. But not only is it important, it's beneficial. And again, this is a win-win. These adjustments are not only reasonable, but they are actually pretty much free and super helpful. Sure, autistic people can bring stuff to help them, but they are going to need the input and assistance of employers to provide things they can't provide themselves. This is a whole of organization approach. This is an all employees and employer working together. The next set of reasonable adjustments, inclusive practices I want to discuss that you can take to your employer today, is under the banner of interaction and communication. Autistic people, by diagnosis, have significant challenges in social interaction and communication. We see, experience, and interact with the world differently. And there's some real issues in the workplace with autistic people being reprimanded, treated badly, bullied, even let go, fired, however you want to put it, for interacting or communicating as an autistic person. There's an expectation that we could hire you as an autistic person, but you are going to need to mask or try to be neurotypical while you're in the workplace. We can't have you going around being yourself. We can't have you going around talking to people like an autistic person, because that'll make them real uncomfortable, right? We can't have the neurotypical people getting uncomfortable because they'll leave. We need them. Right? Well, you don't need them. There's probably 1,000 people lining up for that very same job, which is why, again, we're underemployed. How would you ever expect us to get a job, let alone maintain a job, if there are 1,000 neurotypical people going for the same job as me? Why would employers pick me if they can just pick a neurotypical person? And this is the issue, right? With why would you disclose that? But then when you do disclose it and you do ask for help, the dilemma is, will they then say, okay, well then, if you don't like it, go. There's 1,000 neurotypical people, or they will just say 1,000 people that want your job. There's no real meaningful reason why they would even need to try. This is the issue that autistic people face on a daily basis. The dilemma of, I can tell them and ask for help, like Orion's told me, then they might go, this is too hard, mate. You just take it or leave it. There's 1,000 people that will take this job. We don't need to help you. Wrong. If I'm hired and I work here, it's illegal. It's discrimination 101 to not provide me with the reasonable adjustments, the inclusive practices that help me as a person with a medically diagnosed disability to thrive in the workplace. That's just your job. That's what you've got to do as an employer. So do it. I'm sorry, buddy. You were just a bit too autistic. Sorry, mate. We liked you before, but now you're being you, the real you. It's not good. Now, I've had experiences where that has actually cost me jobs through relationships with the people in the work, right? Like, so once things are broken or soured, professional relationships break down, even if it's just because it got to a point where they were not prepared to deal with you, the real you, right? Just the fake you, even though that's completely illegal and completely unacceptable, it's a daily occurrence. There's no use lying about it. It happens, I'm sure it happens every day to autistic people. This is a massive issue in the workplace. Some of the most obvious reasonable adjustments that employers can do, which really takes little to no effort, is simply allowing autistic employees or neurodivergent employees the opportunity to opt in or opt out of office meetings, of team meets, of last-minute pop-up meetings. In other words, don't enforce attendance. Don't enforce them to socially gather. You know how you have these sometimes, like after work or whatever? They're doing their job, they're productive. This will make it less productive. There's no real point from a working point of view. So why enforce it? Another really easy fix is to simply try and warn, where practical, autistic people of things that are coming up last minute. Provide them with ample notice to last minute or to upcoming changes in routine. Now, okay, so you can warn them. If you decide there's got to be a meeting first thing in the morning, you can warn them prior to, by a text or something and let them know we'll have to have a meeting real quick this morning as this has come up. You can choose if you want to attend it or not. Either way, just letting you know. But then there are things you do know. You may be in a meeting with the execs and decide we're going to do this particular staff thing on this particular day down the track, right? And it's going to be completely different, right? We're going to change offices or go to workplaces or do this. Well, it's like school with excursions and camps. You know at the start of the year. So when you know these things weeks or months out, tell your autistic employees, simply allowing autistic people enough time to process and plan for routine changes, for unplanned or planned disruptions to their working plans, to their working routine, is extremely powerful. And it doesn't cost a cent. I'm just really passionate about employers understanding it. This is a key diagnostic. Challenges in social interaction and communication because we are different. Our brain is different. We will interact and communicate differently. That's a given that will happen every day. Accept it and allow it and enable it and educate yourself and your staff. And therefore, they understand that's not Orion being rude. That's just the way Orion interacts. He's autistic and that's how he communicates. He would be the same if you asked him about ice cream. Some sort of understanding and appreciation, which is what I'm all about, in the workplace with employers, which is lacking right now, as of today in the world, is so important. I'm passionate about crafting this. I've been looking forward to talking about this particular reasonable adjustment, this particular inclusion practice that you can implement in your workplace today. And it's around professionalism. Woo! So for starters, professionalism, acting professional, is a fallacy. It's a made-up term devoid of all meaning. The idea that I will use a term, professional, you must act in a professional manner, and that's a term I can use in a legal sense to therefore hire or fire via HR policies, to me is a fallacy, and that's what I'm talking about. See, professionalism, acting in a professional manner, is in fact completely unhelpful. What actually should be used in the place of professionalism are values. See, they're real. Think about it. I'm not trying to blow anyone's mind here, okay? But think about it like this. If HR stopped doing what they're doing, which is for the most part completely irrelevant anyway, but if we pushed away the whole professionalism, acting professional in a professional manner, we threw away that and said, This workplace has core values, and here's how we judge you as an employee. So you are hired, reviewed, or fired based on these core values, the values that are specific to us as a team here in this workplace. And they would be slightly different, I guess, but there's some basic human values that would always be the same. The bottom line here is values can be shared by all humans. Also, they're tangible. In a rule from a black and white, concrete, specific way of looking at things, that right or wrong mindset that autistic people can have, like myself, they actually make sense. If you have a value of honesty or integrity, I can measure that. I might not measure it the same as you, but I can measure it. It's calculatable. It can't be a word. And what I'm saying is, professionalism isn't. If your contract says I must perform in a professional manner at all times, how do I define that? How do I calculate that? See, as an autistic person, we have a different brain. That's it. So a neurotypical brain and an autistic brain are not the same. I can't be you, you can't be me. I can pretend to be you, but that's just as bad. So the point here is, how can you have a professional HR policy based on clearly a neurotypical brain? Because why wouldn't it be? That's really the only view that HR would ever take. HR do not take a view on any other neurodivergent minds. They might put ramps in for people that use wheelchairs, but what are they doing for neurodivergent people? They just say, oh, you're able-bodied. Well, I've still got a disability. I can't ever meet the neurotypical standard of professionalism. Not only because it's not tangible or understandable, but because I don't have the brain to do it. A neurodivergent brain cannot meet the expectations of a neurotypical brain. It's impossible. So this idea of professionalism is not only discriminatory, in my opinion, to anyone who is not neurotypical, it's also just fanciful. There's better ways of doing it. My first point is values. Hey, if you're not going to be kind, you can't work here. That's one of our core values. One of our core values is integrity. If you're not going to work and act with integrity, you can't work here. That makes sense. I buy into that. The core overarching point with regards to reasonable adjustments under the professional banner is flexibility and understanding. We're going to need some sort of understanding from your point of view, from the employer's point of view, that we think and act differently because we have an autistic brain. Some sort of flexibility in allowing autistic people, neurodivergent people, to determine what they wear to work. Now, again, there's no use saying dress professionally. I don't know what that means, right? It could mean a 7-piece suit to me. So if I determine what I wear to work that's comfortable to me, but also under your direction of what is not acceptable. Look, you determine what you want to wear to work. I just don't want to see thongs, or which are, I think they call them flip-flops, the things on your feet. The other one would be really weird. I don't want to see certain types of clothing. Don't wear this, don't wear that. But, determine what's comfortable for you. Providing flexibility to an autistic employee to determine when they should leave an area or avoid an area because of the overstimulation possibilities or the overstimulation currently being experienced or anticipated. You're not only helping them in their productivity and their mental health, but you're allowing them to hopefully avoid sensory overwhelm and meltdowns, which I've absolutely experienced in the workplace. Not even knowing what was happening. A seizure spewing out of you don't understand why. And you can never recover from those experiences in the workplace. They're horrible to have pre-diagnosis. They're horrible to have after diagnosis. Again, these aren't even money things. These are just providing flexibility, providing some sort of understanding and appreciation of the differences your employees bring. In essence, professionalism says there is only one way for all people in this workplace to act. You must act in a professional manner. Now, that's not only completely broad, but it actually says, in being professional, this is how you must be. There's only one way. But if you have neurodivergent people, they have completely different ways, different operating systems, different ways of seeing, experiencing, interacting. Autistic people have significant challenges in social interaction and communication. Well, that's a big part of the workplace. It isn't achievable. If professionalism says there is only one way you can act, regardless of the brain you have, regardless of the disability you may or may not have, there is only one way you can act. Who's being unprofessional? Me or HR? Another reasonable adjustment, inclusive practice that employers can implement today, and you can certainly suggest to your employer, is around staff education. Encourage your employer, or if you are an employer, find ways to empower your staff with the education, the knowledge, the training of their fellow employees who have neurological differences, who are neurodivergent, who have medically diagnosed disabilities. You can make your employees sit at computers and do 1-hour tests every 6 months on fires and escapes and on bullying, harassment. I'm not saying these things are wrong or bad, but okay, so we're doing those. We can't also provide some sort of training and understanding around neurodivergent people in the workplace so people can go, that person is autistic, that's why they work over there. Or they might leave abruptly if something's too loud or noisy. Like, do you see how important and easy this adjustment is? Just simply empowering your staff with some sort of level of knowledge and training. The question is though, how would this be done? What would you do? Would you make it like another one of those tagged on online things? Would you make it in a big room with hundreds of people? Would it be one-on-one? Who's going to do it? HR, a neurotypical person from HR with no experience or understanding of autism to do it? Probably not. I think it's pretty important we actually get, and it doesn't have to be those staff members, but we get advocates, neurodivergent advocates, autistic people who can speak to your staff in a way that will engage them and reach them and will enlighten them and educate them. It should be delivered by a neurodivergent person, and it should be delivered in a way that is actually practical for all staff to actually physically get it. No one's going to learn anything about neurodivergent employees by doing some stupid 45-minute ticker box online quiz test thing. No employee in the history of the world has ever learnt anything from those stupid online HR tests. Neurodiversity is no different to diversity of investments, agricultural diversity, racial diversity. It's very, very important. And it's not just important for neurodivergent employees. It's actually beneficial for all employees, all employers, and really it's a win-win for society. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. If it resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd share it with your family and friends. Until my next video, thank you for your support. We'll talk soon.